for judges across the country. That tension seemingly reaching a fever pitch today, as we covered at the top of the hour, with Trump calling for the impeachment of the judge that ruled against his administration's use of the Alien Enemies Act. In a rare statement, Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts rebuked those attacks on the federal judiciary, writing that impeachment is not an appropriate response to any disagreement with any judge's decision. It's a crucial reminder from the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court that there is a legal recourse to take if you don't agree with a judge's decision or opinion, rather than attacking them because you do not agree with them politically. Joining our conversation, U.S. District Court Judge for the District of New Jersey, Esther Salas, is back. Hi, Judge. Thank you.
Thank you for having me back, Nicole.
You know, we cover threats and political rhetoric and political violence as it pops up. But I always have, you know, in the back of my head that none of them are just words, because you never know which one will be realized.
Yeah.
How do we deepen our ability to talk about them as not one-offs?
You know, I think that my story and Daniel should be a reminder to everyone that words matter, that there are unintended consequences that I bet when some people are saying things they don't mean to happen. But we know on July 19, 2020, a disgruntled lawyer came to my house on a Sunday at 5 o'clock. And we know that he pointed a gun and shot my son in the chest and nearly killed my husband. And I just worry that we forget how much influence our leaders have, people in positions of power that have big platforms. I think that we have to remember that words matter. What we say and how we treat each other, it matters. And I am really worried about my judicial colleagues. We are seeing things that we have never seen before, right? But this has been, I've been using this lately because it's so true. It's like a bonfire that's been burning for years now, you know? And it's not slowing down. And instead of us trying to squelch it, we're adding fuel and we're adding lumber. And this thing is getting bigger and bigger. And you know, the one thing that I say that Daniel is a constant reminder to me, and I want to say it without getting emotional. I know the value of human life because I've lost the most important thing in my life. And once that genie is out of the bottle, there's no putting it back. So we have to remember that we may not, you know, sometimes we say things in the heat of advocacy, but I just wish that people would realize that we got to tamp it down a bit, because God forbid someone is killed. There's no turning back for that family. There's no turning back for that judge. There's no turning back the hands of time. And so I'm back out here talking about my Danny. I talk about him all the time. You know, he's in every moment of my being. I talk about that boy, and he's in my heart and he's in my mind. But I felt the need to come here. I felt the need to come here because I feel like it's getting, you know, it's getting so big right now. And I think we need to remember how important it is to be civil to one another, to be, you know, let's agree to disagree sometimes. And just like our Chief Justice said, you know, for more than 2 centuries, you know, we've established a certain appellate process that if you don't agree with us, that's okay. You know, it's a healthy democracy when people can speak up and say, we disagree with the judge. It's unfair to accuse us of being partisan without any bases, right? It's unfair to attack us with articles of impeachment because you disagree with our rulings. In other words, you want to impeach us because you don't agree with our rulings. It's unfair to call judges' chambers, as they have been, you know, for now a long time, and saying awful things and wishing us dead. And it's unfair to come to our home on a beautiful Sunday afternoon, ring our doorbell, and take the life of our loved one or take our life. That's not fair, you know, and that's not democracy. This is not a Republican issue. This is not a Democrat issue. This is an American issue that we all should really want to rally behind. You know, I just wish that we could remember Danny. You know, I carry him around all the time. You know, I have him with me. Anytime I open my wallet, he comes out, and I have him with me always because he's a constant reminder to me that I've got to be better. I've got to do better.
Would you go see? I mean, you are really intentional. Don't put him away. You're really intentional about and I mean, Justice Barrett has been the target of a lot of threats and has so it doesn't know one. Its targets don't know one party or judges appointed by people from one party, but. The rebuke today from Chief Justice Roberts, it sounds like you're saying is important and it's directed at Donald Trump. Would you go tell Danny's story to Donald Trump if he wanted to?
I would tell my story to anyone that gives me a minute of their time. I would tell them how beautiful my son is, his spirit is. I would tell them about how Danny loved being an American. I mean, there's this picture of Danny that my husband snapped of him with an American flag and a baseball cap. And you know, it's one of my favorite. That's one of my favorite shots. Because it tells the story of our family. You know, we lived on those Little League fields, and we lived watching him from the mound. And you know what? He loved baseball, he loved America, and he loved this country, and he loved his mother's job. You know, I have to live with the fact that my job cost me the life of my only child.
A very rare statement from the Chief Justice John Roberts was appropriate because it was short, in your words, short, informative, and didn't blame anyone. Why was this the right moment for Chief Justice Roberts to speak out?
People were talking about the case, and they have been in your profession, in the District of Columbia Court, Judge Boasberg and so forth. And look at this statement. 2 sentences. For more than 2 centuries, it has been established that impeachment is not an appropriate response to disagreement concerning a judicial decision.
This is Chief Justice Roberts.
That's right.
Yeah.
And this is his press release. The normal appellate review process exists for that purpose. And now, you know, 299 million of our, or more than that, 229 million of our 230 million people, how many do we have?
Something like that.
Yeah, something like that, are not lawyers. They're not judges. They don't know. And this is an informative and educational statement. Look,
so you think it was appropriate?
I do, because they don't know. I mean, when you have a district court judge or you have a court of appeals judge, somebody's going to win and somebody's going to lose. What do you think the losing side thinks of the judge or the judge's decision? Naturally, they think it's wrong. Of course, that happens every day of the week, across the entire country. And judges are wrong sometimes. So what does that person do? He appeals. He asks for a special writ in some cases, but he gets others to review the decision. Since 1805, and indeed before, it was always considered in this country. It was Chase who was, they tried to impeach in 1805. You
don't like a judge's decision, you go ahead and appeal it to a higher court.
Correct.
And you move on the legal process.
Correct.
As opposed to simply saying, we're going to impeach him.
You move on in the legal process.
Leah, an ICE official formally argued that the lack of evidence against these alleged gang members actually strengthens the administration's deportation case. Quote, the lack of criminal record does not indicate they pose a limited threat. In fact, based upon their association with Tren de Aragua, the lack of specific information about each individual actually highlights the risk they pose. It demonstrates that they are terrorists with regard to whom we lack a complete profile. Leah, what's your reaction to that logic?
It is utterly horrifying, grotesque, and authoritarian, and it calls to mind one of the more shameful incidents in American history, the internment of American citizens of Japanese descent, when an American general justified that internment by saying, quote, the very fact that no sabotage has taken place to date is a disturbing and confirming indication that such action will be taken. Indeed, President Franklin Delano Roosevelt invoked the Alien Enemies Act, the same statute that Donald Trump is, to designate Japanese Japanese nationals, aliens who were enemies of the United States during World War II. And so it seems like they are trying to make Japanese internment great again, and again, one of the more shameful incidents in American history.
Governor, I see you nodding along and agreeing with what you're hearing. Does it seem like this is a White House that's acting as if they have an insurance policy ready in the waiting at the Supreme Court?
I don't know about that. I think what we're seeing are all the trappings of an authoritarian president who has no regard for the law, and he has, therefore, no regard for judges and the courts that seek to uphold the law. I think it's very interesting compared to the first Trump presidency that we survived, that they are going right at undermining some of the more respected institutions of our country and the most beloved programs in our country. So going after the judges, a separate branch of government, saying they should be impeached is really over the top. What I'd like to see is maybe some of our former presidents of both parties get together and say, this is way out of bounds for what we expect from leaders of a republic. No president has ever gone as far as this president has in attacking the very credibility of an independent branch and threatening judges. And this isn't the first time. They began by saying, we can fire administrative law judges. I led Social Security. That's the largest adjudication body in the free world. And they said right up front and got a legal opinion saying, we can fire any administrative law judge we want. So all of this is about a very aggressive dismantling of the foundations and the pillars of this American republic.
Well, here's some of the latest comments we're hearing from President Trump related to judges, related to following the law and their rulings. Listen.
I never did defy a court order.
And you wouldn't in the future?
No, you can't do that. However, we have bad judges. We have very bad judges.
Leah, just your reaction to what we're hearing there. We did see that, statement from Chief Justice John Roberts pushing back specifically on the calls for impeaching judges who rule against the Trump administration.
What you see here is Donald Trump getting crushed by judges. And they're saying it loud and clear. And look, there's obviously no connection between that particular judge who shared the story of her son and Donald Trump, right? It's not like Donald Trump caused that to happen to her son. But she is warning that the rhetoric Trump pushes, the climate he's pushing, could lead to that happening to another judge, and that's unacceptable. And even if Trump doesn't intend it, even if in some cases he doesn't intend it, what if he goes out and calls this judge a threat to him, he calls this judge a threat to the MAGA vision, and one unhinged MAGA takes it too far? It only takes one, like you could have a lot of nut jobs in MAGA, a lot of people in the cult, but it only takes one or two people for a tragedy to happen because of Donald Trump's rhetoric. That's where we're heading right now. And so, yes, there have been some positive signs, but it's not nearly enough. We need to see a more robust pushback from the legal apparatus because Donald is not acting normally. He really isn't. This is not how you approach losing cases he hasn't even lost, even at the appeals level. You follow the process, Donald. And if you can't get some of these things done, pass it through Congress. But don't threaten judges.